Hello, everybody. This is Bart Sharp, and you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 103.5, broadcasting out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. But also, we are on the UPRN talkradio.com website, also on Roku, Facebook, YouTube, and other internet platforms out there all over the world. It's so much fun to be on the radio and do all of this stuff and still be in my living room. In fact, so much of my guests are from France. And of course, I have an impressionist painting. Is there a secret link there? I have no idea, but I'm really excited about our guest today, Natalia Dunne, because I know her personally and I know she's the real deal. Amazing woman, and we're going to bring her on right now. Hey, Natalia, how you doing?
Hello, Bart. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Me too. I'm glad you're here too. Hope we got the background correct. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Just to tell everybody something about Natalia. Natalia lives in Toulouse, France. She's Canadian, but she's also Russian in origin, and decided one day with her husband and two kids, it's like, honey, let's move to France. and voila, she moved to France and eventually started her own tour, own workshops, her own classes, private sessions. But let me just say the bio real quick. I like to say it in my own words, but we'll go with the bio
Go
too.
for it, Bart.
Natalia is a spiritual guide and feminine embodiment mentor. She helps women reconnect to their feminine power and intuition so they can feel safe in their bodies, trust their gifts, and step into their fullest expression. She leads Mary Magdalene retreats in southern France and online Magdalene initiations that weave psychology, somatic work, and ancient feminine wisdom. And you
Mhm.
do all of this in Southwest France and other places. I know you tour in places that I am not really familiar with. So you're much broader out there.
Yes, yes. Well, when you live here, I think you kind of expand because I'm a Sagittarius, like really very Sagittarius. So traveling, this is my jam. And so I love to really go deeper into things and explore places. And, what's really funny, I actually wanted to add a little something on about the introduction, which was so beautiful. Thank you, Bart. But also, the way I moved here was so deeply synchronistic because I lived in Canada for most of my life, for like over 20 years. And then maybe around like 8 years ago, because I've been in France for 7 years, I started getting this message. Just like every time I was in meditation, I would get this voice pop in and she would say, I'm Isis. And she's like, you need to move to southern France and study Mary Magdalene. And I was like, who's Mary Magdalene? Who's this churchy person? And I'm like, I'm not even really religious. Why would I study her? And it kept coming again and again and again. And I was like, okay, so I was working as an occupational therapist. My husband is an engineer. We both had jobs. We have our mortgage, we have our house, we have kids. And I was trying to figure out like, how do I move to France? Because, you can't just move to France. And I was trying to figure out what am I going to tell my husband? Like, babe, please quit your job. ISIS came along. We need to move to southern France. And so, being the responsible mama that I am, I was like, ISIS, I'll need a little bit more help than that. Okay. And I'm not joking. Within a couple of months, the company my husband was working for gets bought by a French company, and they offer to relocate to southern France, pay for all the visa expenses, they do all the paperwork, they get you the residence. And I was like, oh, okay, I said, thank you for this. And so, when I moved to southern France, I had to go and study who is Mary Magdalene. I'm like, okay, so let's explore who that Mary Magdalene is. And that's where like all the feminine mysteries, all of it just like flooded at once. And I discovered so many things about the feminine, about Mary Magdalene. There is also so many ancient goddess sites in France because I didn't know that there was an Isis cult in France. And I was like, what? I thought it was just like, but Roman Empire, this was brought here. There's a lot of ancient Celtic sites. There is just so much history. And like this, I kind of feel like it's the lineage of the goddess that just continues living and sometimes, adapts and shifts her shape to really connect with what is happening in our conscious collective consciousness, but it's always the same thread. It's always the same lineage of like the feminine. And I feel like it was, be it Isis, be it Mary Magdalene, it's always the same archetypes of like emanations of the same feminine frequency and same feminine force. And so I think
It,
when we
it
work,
is.
uh-huh.
It is. And what I also find, and this is from one of my guests, Karina Chrysler, who'll be on the show at the end of December, who married a Egyptian chematologist. In other words, he
Mhm.
studies the most ancient teachings of Egypt. And talking to his grandfather, he was saying, now the hardest thing that you're going to have to conceptualize is Isis was never in a human body. She is a vibration and a frequency that communicates as a being, but yet you're not talking to a ghost when you commune with Isis. You're talking to a vibrational spirit that is everywhere. And
Mm.
Mary Magdalene was a physical person. And so many people with the ISIS following, or France, Spain, where there were ISIS sites, they put either a Mary Magdalene church or a Mother Mary shrine.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that's the integration there. But it's
Absolutely.
interesting that it's from spirit to physical, and they are these
Mhm.
physical representations, which is a great message for us.
100%. And I think us as humans also like I love exploring the psychological aspect of it. And I actually studied psychology in university. What's really interesting is that for our rational human, we sometimes need those representations so that our human can understand it, so that our human has some kind of archetype it can, you know, um, understand and work with and explore. While if we just connect to, for example, because I really relate a lot with what you just said, to me Isis is almost like a vibrational code, like a frequency that we can attune to really get into the same energetic field as her. But this is, I think this is more like, I would say, advanced technique, and so when somebody is just kind of beginning with exploring the spiritual, it's very helpful to have like a physical representation, to have somebody like more concrete so that your human can really understand. And that comes back again to, I think, the masculine and the feminine. And the feminine is just like the being, the essence. You feel it intuitively. The masculine needs categorizations, it needs rules, it needs structure, it needs some kind of name, some kind of face, and something structural. And so, depending if we are very much in our masculine, it will be a little bit harder to connect to, like, I don't know, I'm going to use the example of Isis, which is like, oh, we're just connecting to this frequency. But if you have like a
Yes.
physical embodiment representation, like a statue, a mythos, something you can tap into, it becomes easier to connect to that frequency through the medium of, either that person or that representation.
And there's this place that people are looking at the statue, or they're reading a book or something, and they're going, well, how do I get from there to this place of this magic vibration that I know that magic comes from? And I see all the stories, and people have these incredible things.
Mm.
How do you teach people to get there? Which, hint, hint, insinuates our title for today.
I was just going to say that. Well, I think again, I believe that our bodies are literally temples of initiation. And there is, for the longest time, we have been living in a very masculine world. And this is not to say good or bad. There's good and less good things. But even our spirituality is very masculine. And masculine is the force that, it goes up, it rises.
Hmm.
And so it wants to ascend and it wants to leave the body. The feminine energy is the feminine that descends. It goes deep into the body. And so it doesn't escape the body. It goes so deep into the body that the body becomes the temple of initiations, because we hold all the stories, we hold our traumas, we hold things that are transmitted to us from our lineage in our bodies. And specifically for women, it's in our wombs. Before we even have like a story, a personality, or anything, we always had a womb and a womb field. And by the way, for the womb, I just want to add something. The I'm referring more to like the energetic center that for women is often literally in the womb. For women who don't have a womb, you still have the energetic center. And the men also have this energetic center. And it's called the hara, or if I'm not mistaken, I think more like Taoistic lineages, they call it the lower dantian.
Hmm.
But I'm not like expert in that area, so I'm not gonna venture too much in it.
I am.
Oh, you are. Well, okay, maybe you want to expand a little bit on this.
Well, it'll come out spontaneously.
Perfect.
But
Okay.
since I'm a guy and I do this type of work, it's only natural.
I love this. You're gonna compliment me on this. And so, yeah, and so for the women, the center is literally inside our wombs, and our wombs have memories. Our wombs, they literally react to emotions that happen in our bodies. Our wombs are cyclical, like the feminine. We have, different cycles that are held in our wombs. It's not just always like, again, the masculine is always this expansion and growth, and feminine is like up and down, up and down. It's the spiral that never ends. And so there is like definitely a journey underworld every month. And so there is a lot of mysteries in the womb, and the womb is the center of our sexuality, of our creativity, of this life force energy that lives in our womb. And very often, what happens is that, from my experience working with the womb, I think she is the biggest guide to show us how connected are we to our own sovereignty and to self-trust. Because if we are in our brains, if we are thinking, okay, says what, who thinks what, and most of us, and so many women I work with, we live in our heads. Because again, masculine, right? Like, we're in our heads, we're thinking, we're always either leaning forward in time and thinking about future, or we're leaning backward in time and we're thinking about all the things that happen. We ruminate. But to
Yeah.
be in our womb, we need to be fully present and we need to descend into the womb. And how often have you, or just like maybe the women who are listening, how often did you experience yourself through your womb? How often did you actually descend and just be there? And
It's it's
yeah.
interesting. There's a magical word I use is intention. Where do
Mm,
you place your intention? And a lot of people who just begin this journey don't even understand that. They're so stuck in their head that
mm,
they have yet to say, "Oh, I can take all of my intention and see the world through my heart, or see the world through my womb, or more subtle places." But usually it's the heart and the womb that people are first learning, and the most practical applications of intention come from there. So right
mm,
now, if I want to be a good interviewer, I need to stay in my heart, because I listen to you and something comes out that's more intuitive and
mm,
more caring.
mm.
Uh, and it's a magical part of that. And it's a starter, I see.
100%. Yes. And thank you for being in your heart. I received this. And so what's really, again, like you mentioned, it also depends like where we have the intentionality to be in. And the womb, I feel like if we are in our head, the womb is a little bit like exiled. She is kind of offline, if you want. And so, because we have been taught to lead from our head most of the time, the womb really is like, okay, she's a bit dormant because she's not activated. She's like, we are not in the womb. All our consciousness is in our head. And it can be for many reasons. A lot of it is because women have never been taught how to connect to their wombs. We have only been exposed and experienced like and also praised for being like very rational and being very in the head, and so maybe there is the conditioning. There could be trauma, a lot of trauma. And when I say trauma, it's not just our personal trauma. We carry like our womb is the connection to our lineage, like to all the women who came before us, especially the maternal lineage. um, there's this concept of the red thread, because when we are little baby girls and we are forming in our mom's belly, we already have our little eggs, right? And then when your mom was forming in her mom's belly, she already had the little egg that would become you. So, like, a part of you was already in the womb of your grandmother, which is like so fascinating. And so that means like our wombs, like, literally, they are the connection to all the women who were also in our lineage. And so a lot of the things, like especially now, there is so much research done on epigenetics. There is a lot of stories that can be stored and a lot of trauma that can be stored in our womb. And so maybe sometimes the womb also self-protects if we are not ready to go and journey there and explore what has been kept, what cycles might be running in our family, in our lineage. And so sometimes she also goes like dormant and offline because of
So,
self-protection.
yeah, I think that's a great word, self-protection. And that's a lie. We do not need to protect ourselves from our
Mhm,
past. Although
mhm,
everybody says we both do shamanic work, and there's always these people that say, "Oh, I don't want to go back and explore that. That was too painful."
mhm.
And yet you go, "Oh no, this is very safe." In fact, you're going to be glad you did because you start to see what the illusion is that's hidden away in that wound.
Yeah. Yes.
And how do you get to people with that? Because you lead tours, you work individually, and also you do workshops and classes all along the line of womb wisdom, of getting
Mm,
in touch with this. And if you go to Instagram with Natalia Dunne or on Facebook and start to check out her pages and sites, you get to see these glorious events and also great photography of doing this work in highly sacred places, women only at this point, but uh, they look so magical. It looks like you're really getting into some places, and you know, you're one of the people that I always say has this balance of maybe doing like everybody wearing white, but there's no posing about this.
mm,
There's nothing that's inauthentic about it. In fact, it is one of the deeper perspectives out there in this type of womb wisdom
mm,
out there. It's very much getting into the ground floor, so to speak.
mm,
Your deepest parts. Some of it's getting into trauma, but also it is how do you connect with the magic of the land, the magic of what vibrates inside of you and put them together. And
mm.
so, could you just share a little bit about, some of the stuff that you see as important and how to get there?
100%. So I think the womb, well, actually, every single part of our body is like, it's like our best friend. It's like, I want to be your best friend forever. This is our home. This is where our souls live. And so sometimes we don't have a very loving relationship with our body. And that goes to all parts of our bodies, including the womb. Or sometimes we might completely disconnect and just be in our heads. But the moment you tell your body, and just again, like what you mentioned before with the intention, the moment you say and you set this intention, you're like, body, I want to work with you. I want to come back home to you. I want to return to you. Your body's like, yes, yes, I have been waiting for this. I have always been waiting for this. And it's the same thing with the womb. The womb is always like, yes, please. Like the moment you say, I would love to work with you, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes, it's really funny. We have like this, and maybe it's from the Hollywood movies. We have like this idea that, like, oh, when we go into the spiritual, there have to be like those big bells ringing and like things happening. And it's like, no, usually that's not how it happens. Usually it's like very subtle. Usually it's very like, it can be gentle. And because our human is expecting so much magical, like bells and whistles, we might even miss the signal because we're not used to listening to the whispers of our body. And so I think a lot of it is about, can I quiet down? Can I just connect? Can I put my hand on, that part of my body I would love to connect with? And if it's the womb, then you say the womb. And yes, I love what you mentioned about not being afraid of journeying deeper. However, also I would love to bring to attention, depending on what trauma we experienced, or like how able is our human to receive because of the nervous system, because of the wiring, it might be more maybe gentle things and maybe not at the same time. And everybody has their own path and their own process. And I think it's important to respect that. And just because something feels like big to us or small to us, it might be the complete different way for another person. And so it's important, like also when we keep spaces, not to impose our perspective on people. I'm not at all saying that that's what you do, but just like
Yeah. Well,
respect that.
I totally get what you're saying, because it's a really tricky place that you're teaching this theory and you're teaching exercises to get in touch with this. And it's like all of this information, all of these new tools. Now take that and find your own individual path with it. It's not some dogma or rules and stuff.
No.
And another part about this, how much do you kind of feel when you do workshops that you're a conduit? In other words, you opened a path and you hold that energy like a conduit. It's all flowing with you. That helps people learn. It's almost like you get to surf with Natalia Dunne a little bit and learn how to surf yourself.
Well, that's exactly it. I so deeply believe that every single human is this incredibly powerful, sovereign soul that came to experience what humaning is about. Okay. And so I'm not here to be like above anyone. To me, it's a co creation. And so I might show you, like, guide you in some things that maybe I journeyed on a path longer. And so I might, like, give some tips or show some things or teach some things. But ultimately, every single human is absolutely sovereign. Your womb has so much wisdom. It has so much things to teach you. It has so much things to show you. And it might be completely different from what my womb is teaching me. And so I think to me, the journey is like, how can I create a space that is so deeply safe to help you access those parts of yourself and those parts of your own psyche and those parts of, I think every soul has like this magic. I don't think it's magical. I think it's natural. We just decided for some reason to pretend it's magical aspects where we're able to tap into, intuition, where we're able to tap into like oracular gifts. And I think a lot of it also lives in our womb because women are oracles. I think the womb is like, when you think about it, it's the veil. It is the separation between realms. Like every soul that is going to come into this earth comes through the womb. And when they're in the womb, they're still in this a little bit in between space. So we literally have that in our bodies. Like, how magical is that? And so your womb and your womb space and your this chakra, this energy center, really, if you activate it, if you connect with it, it can really, at least from my experience, it can really spark a lot of your own intuitive abilities. And it amplifies in nature. So when we go to sacred places, and we already like send the signal to our womb of like, oh my god, my womb, I want to work with you. It's safe. I'm receptive to you. I want to hear you. And then you go into nature, and nature naturally like just recalibrates us. And on those sacred lands that like activate, a lot of those sacred lands are connected to the feminine and to the feminine mysteries. And I also work a lot with water, and water is another really, really potent ally for the feminine. Um, then it's like I'm just holding the space. The magic, you are doing the magic.
It's like I have a curious question with that because I
Mhm.
love your photography on your groups. You really pull into being a part of the fun, being part of the mystery. But you often talk about doing a rose ceremony with water. And could you just describe a little bit about what happens there?
Oh my goodness, Bart. I wish I had like I'm gonna be fully transparent. I wish I had like a, very masculine class of like, this is what we do at minute 2 and this is at minute 5. And you know what? It is literally living, breathing temple practice with whatever is needed in the collective of the group. Because, first of all, I really think whenever you hold groups, the groups is almost like soul contracts that we all gonna come together and we all gonna co-create that. And every group is so different, so deeply different. And so, whatever medicine comes from the rose, whatever wants to be channeled through the rose, and the rose, for those who don't know, it really is the flower of the feminine, and it has been for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Also, because I don't know if you know the pattern of Venus in the sky, it creates the rose of Venus
Mm-hmm.
every 8 years. And so the ancients knew that. And so the rose has always been connected to Venus. It's always
So,
has been connected to the goddess.
so every rose has a deep cellular memory or
Mhm.
energetic memory, interdimensional memory, whatever you want to call it, that connects to Venus consciousness, which
Oh,
to
yes.
me is about the application of infinite, which the
Oh.
feminine does. The feminine multitask with infinite as its basis.
Mm.
Uh, I know that's a bit of a heady concept, but it's all the applications that can happen, and the feminine
Mm.
applies them all.
I love the way you worded it.
Well,
Yes.
that's why so many women run circles around men. That's another story.
Mm.
So when you're doing a rose ceremony, you're bringing that in.
We are bringing
Oh,
that in. And
cool.
so I also look, what does how does the rose want to flow? Sometimes I just connect to it. Sometimes it just intuitively happens with the group. But basically, when you combine the rose and somatic practices, and like when you take the rose, you take the time to smell her, you take the time to connect to her intelligence, because the rose herself, she's very intelligent. She has her own frequencies, she has her own energetic field, she has her own egregore. There's like a whole egregore of the rose. And so when you connect to your body, especially sometimes what we can do is literally put it on the womb and ask for the healing of the rose. And a lot of the things can start unraveling when the two of them come together. And I cannot explain to you in a very, methodical, masculine, structural way. Of okay, this is what happens, and then this happened, and then this happened, because for every woman, it's going to be a very different journey. Sometimes it might activate some gifts, it might activate some memories, it might activate some visions. Sometimes it might be something more soothing. Sometimes it can bring back like fears that they didn't even know they were carrying in their wombs. And this is what is asking to be seen, to be witnessed, to be alchemized. Um, we do sometimes like blessings with the rose, where you can take the rose and dip it into sacred waters and just like bless the body, which for so many women, like I would say majority of women have never experienced that, like that level
Uh,
of devotion and exquisiteness of being like anointed and blessed with roses and water by another woman. And it does something somatically on our body, where we're like, oh, our nervous system just regulates to a level that we have never experienced, and it can unlock a lot of things that are stored in our body when we're bracing, when we're like in this fight flight, which a lot of women are. And having this level of love, devotion, safety on our body, it just changes something and opens something and activates something. And this is, I don't think again, I don't think I'm the one working. Like, it's the collective. Like, as a group, we do it. The rose comes in to do it. The waters come in to do it. It's group work.
And it's also the neurological being inside and outside the body that is female with this
Mm.
particular ritual. I don't know
Mhm.
if it would be the same with men, although I've never heard these concepts, and I have to say I'm intrigued and want to play. And of course, I'm going to have to find my own way being a man, and that's okay.
Well,
With that,
we'll do it next time you're in France.
there we
Over
go.
some rose rituals.
Well, it's true, but it's just this. I get it that so much about the mystery of women being with women in that energetic boundary, or not boundary, but this energetic connection happening, with the water being this interdimensional conduit, and you being the leader, and the roses and Venus all together. Um, it's just, it makes sense.
Mm. And it does unlock something on the nervous system level, because I think all of this is
Mm,
deeply regulated by our nervous system, how much we can receive, how much we can give. Like, it all depends on where is your nervous system calibrated to.
mm-hmm.
And we cannot, as women and men too, to experience pleasure, to experience, to really receive that experience. And again, receiving is such part of the feminine. We need to feel safe. You cannot be
Wow.
in pleasure and at the same time be unsafe.
Well, I would say that for all of you couples out there, or have partners that want to do metaphysical stuff together, this should be a workshop for no. This should be somebody's practice, and maybe to be my practice. Who knows? Of doing these ceremonies with your partner.
Yeah. Yes.
It just sounds. I'm sure there's a few other parts that we're missing, but boy, you got my mind thinking. And I gotta also be thinking about, it's midpoint of the show, and you are with our guest Natalia Dunne, uh, of Womb Wisdom is the topic of tonight. I'm almost blank, it's so stimulating. And my name is, let me think hard, Bart Sharp at Becoming Quantum Conscious, and this is United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 103.5 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. And let's just take a moment while we're in this wonderful space. Just feel the expansion when we think about doing all of these rose ceremonies, and how the world feels like a more promising reality for everybody when we start to think about magic can be transferred with this. So, Natalia, what classes do you have coming up these days? What events, projects, etc.? Want to spend a
Mm.
minute or two to just share with everybody?
Yes, actually, I just opened the doors not long ago to the 8-week online pilgrimage for Mary Magdalene, or Mary Magdalene and the feminine, because to me they go together. We are going to start January 22nd, but you can already sign up. And for 8 weeks, we are going to be journeying on these sacred lands. I'm going to be sharing a lot about Mary Magdalene from the esoteric perspective, the energetic perspective, the feminine mysteries, but also from historical perspective. Because living here, um, oh my goodness, there is just so much history that I had no idea about. And I do think, as much as I am a very, intuitive and magical human, I do love some grounded research, and I do love some grounded historical, anchoring as well. So there's going to be a lot of historical aspect to Mary Magdalene too. Um, so we are going to go to different, I mean, go online, go to different water springs connected to her, different churches. A lot of the churches are highly coded, as you know, Bart. We're going to go explore some grottos. We're also going to learn about the Cathars. We're going to learn about the Templars. And, you asked me about some other places I journey to. Because I live not far from Toulouse, I'm really like in the heart of, the Occitania. And so there is just so much that a lot of people don't speak about because I have not found anything in English. And it happens so that I speak French, which is really helpful. And I'm like, oh my God, a lot of the people they don't know, but there is so much history around the Cathars around where I am as well. And so
Oh,
I
yes.
want to bring that back, like even Albi is fascinating. I live 5 minutes away from like a very powerful Qatar lady who used to live here. Of course, unfortunately, she got burned and killed, but she was one of the main, resistances during the crusade. It's so fascinating. Like she's still honored here. And so there's a lot of stories that people don't know, but we're going to go explore all of this and the pilgrimage and the
Right.
later the Templars, and also a lot of somatic activations working through the body so that we can actually feel those lands and connect to those lands, even if we're not on them. Because I do think lands have an energetic frequency that you can tap into. Of course, when you're there physically, something very powerful happens because literally your biology, your field is interacting with the technology of this land, but you can also connect to them different ways. And so this is what we're going to be doing for like 8 weeks, which I'm so excited about. And I also have a class for free that I would actually love to offer to the people who are listening to us. And it's a class on womb mysteries that I really go more in depth on, like healing. And we do an activation there. We explore also Christian mysticism a little bit, how it might be connected also to the womb mysteries and maybe more ancient feminine traditions. So all of this is in the class. I'll send you the link so you can, add it later on.
Wonderful. And also, just to reiterate, you can find Natalia Dunne on Instagram at unleash underscore the underscore goddess, or on Facebook. So if you just Google Natalia Dunne, Natalia Dunne, you can find her. And it's always a pleasure just to go through your pages because there's so many great photos in there, and it, they're enticing. They pull you in. You're going to wonder
Mm.
what they're really doing here,
Well,
and such as that. And they're always in beautiful settings because you're in Southwest France.
yeah. And Bart, can I add a little something about the photos? I
Sure.
would love to say that I did photography for over a decade. So I adore photography. So it's like, it's a creative expression for me. So I couldn't not have beautiful photos. Like I love it. It's so creative for me. And I also use it very intentionally in the sense that I think, again, like what we started with during our conversation is that our humans, they really respond to visuals. We are very visual beings. And so we respond to archetypes, and archetypes live in all of us. And seeing an archetype, because my photos are intentionally very archetypal, because this is what I would love to call in women. This is what it's almost like a frequency that I'm inviting them to step into. And so this is visual communication because we have verbal communication, but to me, this is visual communication. I'm like, hi, do you want to be that? Do you want to come incarnate that? And I think it evokes something emotional. It evokes that archetype within us deeper than any words ever could. And that's why I love doing
Yeah.
also that.
If there's a motion that you could, I think you're trying to stimulate because you're giving all of this visual stimulation, and it looks enticing and stuff. But at the same time, something in the womb space, or maybe the heart space, but more in the womb, when you're talking about archetypal stimulation. And we're not talking a sexual stimulation, that is a different stimulation between the hips, and it's there too, uh, and should be respected. However, this archetypal stimulation is joy.
Mm,
That's the emotion that I could find a deeper level of wholeness inside of me. It's
Mm.
possible. And it ain't in my head. The head is never satisfied with joy, or if it does, it's not long. But this is a level of being that can be with you all your life. In fact,
Mm.
when stuff happens that are challenges in your life, if you have that womb connection, second chakra connection, and men have similar, it's your anchor.
100%. And what I would love to add also is, first of all, the womb knows. When we are trying to analyze rationally, the womb, it just knows. And the womb is, to me, the quickest connection to Mother Earth. And so,
Mm,
because again, it's like those cyclical rhythms, they're just naturally connected through the cyclicity. And so, if ever you feel, like a challenge or something is happening, it is so powerful to just go and sit or lie on the ground. Like I sometimes just like lie on my belly with the womb, and I'm like, I feel
mhm.
held, and I'm like, it's like womb to womb, and there's just like this co-regulating to earth. It is so healing. It is so powerful. And your womb naturally knows how to do that and to bring you this, again, this co-regulation for your nervous system so that you can shift those states or at least feel held and feel safe. And I think whenever we um, go back into safety, that's when we can unlock higher thinking and see like solutions, perspectives, like different things. When we are in fear mode and our nervous system is like, oh, it's very hard to see possibilities.
It is. You very much narrow down when you're in those things. It's like tunnel vision when you have anger or fear, regulating it. And if that's been your life and
Yeah.
you always feel like that and you're using your mind, it's almost like if I push hard enough, I work hard enough, if I do things hard enough, I'll have success. But it ain't fun.
Mm. Isn't funny? And also, you might have the success you could think of rationally, but when you connect to the womb, oh my goodness, it brings you levels of success you didn't even dream about because it has a
Yeah.
bigger perspective than your human has a perspective. And so sometimes like rationally, we can only think within our box. The womb takes you to like this, you know, the collective like consciousness level,
It
right? And so
does.
there is better, bigger possibilities that your human could even imagine.
So
And so
tell
when,
us about creativity in that reality.
oh, I love that question. Creativity in that reality. I think creativity is a little bit also like channeling, at least to me. That's how I see
Mm,
creativity. It's like, can I create? I love that that's the word that came out. Can I create enough of spaciousness in me to allow something bigger than me to pass through? And when we are in this receptive state, we sometimes make links we would have never made before. And this is like the birth of creativity. I think every single human that I ever met who had like this major creative ideas, pretty much all of them said, I felt like something bigger whispered that to me, or I felt like something bigger came to through me. And so again, I think creativity is creating this spaciousness to connect to something bigger than us so that we can flow through us.
oh, well, so beautifully said. It just happens so much with that. I did Al-Anon therapy. This is before I became a psychic. I wasn't a psychic all my life. Of course, I'm kind of known for that now. But when I did Al-Anon and I really resolved a lot of my resentments and my anger at one level. Of course, I learned later that there'd be deeper levels of that. But then it felt safe to be in my gut. And
Mm,
then it's almost like a voice would come up slow and easy in me, as opposed to the mind being fast and sharp. And I
mm,
started to get it. Wow, this is intuition. It comes up literally directionally sometimes. It comes from your
mm,
womb. And for me, it's like when I felt safe enough and the traumas had there was less fear around my traumas because I felt like, wow, I can deal with my traumas for the first time in my life. Then this intuition started coming up.
yeah. Is it because you feel like you created the spaciousness for it?
Yes, and
Yeah.
safety
And safety. Oh,
and
everything passes through the safety.
and resolution to some degree.
Mm.
But as you
Mm.
well know, there's lots of levels of resolution, and each one you get to, you get a gift.
Mm. I love this. I
Yeah.
love this. Yeah. And sometimes like what we also forget is like our womb stores memory, right? So it has the memory that
Mm,
is transgenerational memory, like I mentioned. Also, specifically for women, when we have partners who penetrate us, we also store information about our partners. And so sometimes it's also good, like, it can be a little bit sometimes fuzzy. When we connect to our womb, it's beautiful to also do like a little cord cutting and a little bit clearing around the womb to just be like, okay, I want to return back to like my original womb imprint, and this is so potent because we carry this penetration, but sometimes not in the most aligned ways. Um, Energy, like maybe a lot of women have that in their real life in 3D experiences, but also like collectively as the feminine there was a lot of that, and so there's all of those imprints are stored in our womb. And so one of the most powerful experiences for me was really to connect the womb and to ask it to start returning and return to the original blueprint. And the original
mm,
blueprint, to me, this is like, oh, it's what the feminine and what the goddess and like what this primordial mother was before all the stories and all the distortions that happen on this earth. And it's so powerful because it's the pureness of, our erotic energy, the pureness of our sexual energy, the pureness of this life force energy, the pureness of our creative energy. It's like returning to this innocence, to this pureness, to like this, it's like almost like source. And that was so profound. I think like when I was doing this work, I I probably cried for like a week because there was like so much. But I do highly, highly suggest to every woman, like you can definitely work with someone if you don't feel like you trust yourself enough, but your womb knows how to do that naturally. Okay. And so how much we trust our womb is how much we trust our own sovereignty. And when we're just beginning that path, sometimes that might feel scary. And so again, if you've been in the masculine all the time and you feel like you need a lot of rules and a lot of like textbook, this is how we do it. It's or like safety. Sometimes it's just about safety. It's beautiful to do it with someone. But I also want to say, like, even just like putting your hand on your womb and saying, womb, I want to listen to you. I want to connect to you. Is there something you would love to communicate to me? And some people, like, your body will talk to you. Your body will so happily talk to you. You just have to create the spaciousness to listen.
wow. That says so much, Natalia. Thank you so much for that comment.
Mm.
I mean, it just brings up so much imagination that when these second chakra energies or these womb energies all start to come alive, because there's a lot of different parts down there that are part of that process, from the ovaries to the second chakra to our sexual organs, perineum, coccyx bones. They all
Mhm.
have these parts and pieces that come together, and you start to see the diversity of vibrations you can
Mhm.
begin inviting. So
Mhm.
I would imagine in your progression, because you've been doing this for quite a while, you've just seen some wonderful adventures that you get to go on in your
Mhm.
own personal journey while raising children and having a husband.
Oh, yes. I've been 20 years with my husband, so he's still there. It's good. Yeah, but I think, sometimes we don't think of that. But I think also, what's really interesting, you said different vibrations. I don't recall from the top of my head the study they did, but I think they did a study and they measured like the frequency of the voice. And when you literally speak from your womb, the frequency of your voice changes. And so I would
Mm,
love to even invite people to try that. Like, try speaking from different centers in your body and see how your voice changes.
wow.
Because even our communicate, like everything changes.
Yes, so true. And when you start to, as you mentioned before, that I can get down to the original blueprint And keep asking that question and making that request. Because from what I understand, we're coming from the same page. If we ask the body for a change or to grow in a certain way, and we're very specific, like original blueprint, um, the body will keep trying to bring that up a little
Mm,
bit at a time, a little bit at a time,
yeah.
and maybe ask those questions. Well, what's in the way? What am I doing to prevent this? Maybe that'll come to
Mhm.
you. But we
Mhm.
go on that journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how you put it. It really is like peeling, layers upon layers upon layers, and there's always deeper. And it's always in the perfect alignment for what your human is ready to receive in that moment. So I really believe we shouldn't even be afraid of going there because your body, the way it's built, your psyche, the way it's designed, it will never deliver you something that you're not ready to receive and alchemize.
That's a wonderful thing to know.
Yeah.
And just all of what we have done, whether we think there's a failure or an abuse or a victory, we signed up for it in a lot of ways to bring us on to another lesson,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And,
know.
we talked a lot about like the trauma and the things that can be, wanting to be alchemized in our wombs. But there's also gifts, like the lineage, all the women that came before you, they had gifts as well. They lived their lives, and through their lives, they mastered something. Like each one of us is mastering something in this life. And as much as there's like cycles that we would love to break in our lineage, there is also gifts that we can receive and collect, and those memories, like it's sometimes some things that come easier to you, or like easy or feel natural, is because it has been mastered in your lineage, and it's something that you can just be like, yeah, I can absolutely step into this. And so you can even connect to your womb and ask, what gifts are there? What gifts am I like underutilizing? What gifts am I maybe not allowing myself to step into, but I would love to step into?
Ooh, that's so wonderful. We're coming down to the last 3.5 minutes of the show. So, Natalia, if you will just think of a parting message you would like to give to everybody in like a minute to 2 minute message. And while you think about that, I want to tell everybody that you are listening to Natalia Dunne with Womb Wisdom. You can find Natalia on Instagram at unleash underscore the underscore goddess. But you can also Google Natalia Dunne, Natalia on Instagram or Facebook and see all of this variety of activities, classes, tours, personal work, individual work that she does. And of course, she can do this on things like Zoom. So she's very available for y'all. My name,
Absolutely.
yes, my name is Bart Sharp, and you're on Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 103.5 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. What party wisdom do you have for us, son?
Mhm. I would love to just remind everyone that when you reconnect back to your womb, you also reconnect back to your natural magnetism, because you awaken this feminine energy, and the feminine energy is not the chasing and the go-getting energy, it's the magnetizing energy. And so for very often we have been, taught that we need to go after things, get things, push things. And this is very valuable because sometimes we need to do that. But that's the masculine energy. And the power, the true power of the feminine is the receptive, is the magnetic. And the moment you start connecting to your womb, the moment it starts activating, the moment you start, like the feminine energy starts recirculating, and it becomes almost inevitable. You just become this magnetic being, and you start experiencing life through a whole other paradigm. And I think even if it's just for that experience, I think it's worth exploring what your womb is capable for. But also know that the womb is probably one of the most potent centers in your body. It is the oracular, it is the creative, it is the ancestral, and it has so many gifts. And I would love to really invite everyone, if you just want to do one simple exercise of like putting your hand on your womb, you can even take a rose if you want, put a rose as well, and just ask your womb, say, I'm here. I want to hear you. I want to listen. What do you have to say? You'll be surprised how many things. And if ever you want to come back and tell me if you did that, what came up to you, I would absolutely love to hear.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show, Natalia. It was really a joy, and want to wish everybody well. And we will see you next week on Becoming Quantum Conscious. Thank
Perfect.
everybody so much, and goodbye.